Good afternoon, everyone. I'm back in the shed, and on the bench today I have something that's, well, kind of special to me. It's just another CED player. This is the Sears FG player here. This was Sears' first player of the format, and then they were later on go to the Hitachi chassis, and that's where you'll find like the stereo Sears. Those are the Hitachi chassis. But to start out with, they did use the good old FG chassis like the Zenith did as well. Now, why this is special to me, this past weekend, this is currently Memorial Day, I was in my old neighborhood over the weekend to do stuff, and I stopped by my favorite antique place to go to. This is the same place where I got a lot of Princeton titles, including Suspicion. So they actually had more CEDs there that they've had for like years now, that no one's like ever snatched up, including this player here, which they've also had for years and years, especially as far as I've been aware of the format. No one's ever picked this up. So I just went to the person, running the store that day, and I said, hey, these discs and this player have been like dormant for like years, as long as I've been going here. Would you take, could I take everything for $50? And ultimately, the deal was made. I got this and a bunch of other, nothing special. It was mostly stuff I already had, but I got all that for $50. Now, again, there was nothing special. There was no more like Princeton titles or whatever, but the whole thing was that like it was a sentimental find for me. Like I remember sifting through those discs, looking at this player, messing with it when I was, but a wee lad in the format in the AV, hobby here. So I want them for sentimentality than like to actually, because I thought they were of value emotionally to me. I just wanted to make sure these were going to end up in a safe place, including this player. So this player is not without its faults. Of course not. So I already undid the screws and pop under the hood here. It's nothing. It's just your regular FG chassis. There's nothing special to it. It comes with a stylus. So that's very good. And through the testing I've done, the stylus does work, so that's even better. So this player has an interesting fault, and I've seen, well, at least a variation of this fault on like a couple other players already. So just flip the switch, goes into load. First and foremost, the servo belt on this is basically heading out the door. So, so throughout this troubleshooting process, I'm going to be like spinning this wheel because I want to fix whatever electronic problem this thing has before I do the easy servo belt swap. So, very fitting test disc here for this player because this was the first CED I ever got. I just got this thing through eBay because, well, I didn't know if any. This is before I realized that the shop near me had discs for sale and my TV turned off by itself. So this was an eBay grab. The seed from which half. What am I trying to say? This is the seed from which my tree of half the U.S. library grew. So this player, it's a mono only, of course. So, and furthermore, because it's an RCA chassis, your only output is the antenna output there. So I have this hooked up to my CRT. My CRT's on channel 3. and you're going to see a very, very interesting fault on this. So you're just barely going to be able to see the display here. So flip the switch, Frankenstein style. Yeah. Then give it a moment. So, black and white, first and foremost. There is a little bit of ghosting on the image. Yes. So it's going to be easy to spot. See that bar there? And the United Artists. United Artists logo is like ghosting there. So, it's on this one for a while. There we go. So you see it with the Rocky there, how it's ghosting. You got the main image, and then you got like the ghost is like a letter off. That's really weird. There's no minutes on this thing. It's only double dashes. And you probably can't hear because the traffic out there, the rain, but there's actually audio coming out of this thing. So that's what's happening on this thing. It's not a case of, well, it works other than, pause. So it's not a case of, oh, it's just playing in black and white, but everything else works. This thing has, because of the double dashes, we know that this thing is missing the DAXI signal. Or at least that, or the system clock is not functioning as it should. Because if it were getting the DAXI correctly, or the system clock was running properly, you would get the minutes on here. However, we're not. We're only getting dashes. That paired with the ghosting means we have a deeper fault in the circuitry. And I bet you I know which component it is, because I've dealt with, on the Tony's G250, on Tony's SGT 250, he actually made a video on that like years back. I looked at that at the last workshop, and what ended up being the fault on that, because it had basically the same issue, except his did not have any sound output. But we were using, composite, because that was a stereo player. So I don't know if going through RF, if that makes a difference. Maybe. I don't know. I bet you I know which component it is, but I'm going to keep it a secret. Because I want to go through the troubleshooting process. Okay, so I have the player now in service mode. This is going to be really interesting to try and figure out how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to have to cut back and forth between showing what I'm testing on the board here. This is the main board, and then switch over to an oscilloscope view to show what's being picked up on the oscilloscope here. So to get this in service position, I reference you to my video from 2 years back about getting, that one was getting just SGT 250 into service position. So on that one, you have to do this and the stereo board. But on this one, you only have this board, and it's much easier to only have to swing this around and put it on its side here. So, and I have this upside down, because some of the test points I'm going to want to access to are kind of covered by one of the boards. I think it's the NLAC board that's on top of this section here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the procedure in this manual here. Oh my God, what am I doing? In this manual here, this is the same, the John Link book the video disc troubleshooting book, the CED stuff is basically ripped out of this for all the troubleshooting parts. So if you have that book, you basically have this, but of course this is the actual thing that RCA technicians would have been given. So why I'm doing what I'm looking at here is the video converter servicing part. First and foremost, I'm doing the initial service check. I'm doing this because we would otherwise be quick to fault the comb filter, the thing that actually separates the luminance and the chrominance off the disc, because first the signal, as far as the video path goes, the video gets demodulated by the video demodulator. That's where is that? It's one of these that's shielded. Oh, no, it's this one. This is the video demodulator circuit. Then the demodulated video is sent to the comb filter here. Comb filter and all the goods are in this shielded box, which, by the way, is only to protect the other electronics. It's not necessary to have this on when operating these players. Just a little fun fact. Once the combed luminance and combed chroma come out of here, they go to the video converter here, and then it's reprocessed to proper NTSC video and so on and so forth. That's the absolute gist of it. So on this format, the DAXI, kind of the brains of the format, that is stored in the chrominance section. So the fact that we are not getting a time display or color would indicate something in like this section. However, what can happen is if the clock is not running, then you're not going to get any frequency. Then this is not going to run properly. So the chrominance, so that would explain the no color part. So before we fault the comb filter, what we're going to do is make sure that the clock is running, and if it's not, try and find out why it's not running. So that's the quick and dirty explanation of why I have it flipped to this page. Let's get to the actual interesting part, and let's see if I can beat the clock to my CRT switching off, because I was talking there for a while. Then flip the Frankenstein lever. Oh, my TV turned off. Shoot, I was this close. It doesn't do that on the line inputs, which is, yeah, I'm going to have to deal with this. The belt, by the by, looks loose and not dirty because it doesn't seem to have the tightest grip. Well, I'll deal with that later after I deal with this. So, let me hit pause. So, service procedure. Initial service check. The 1.53 megahertz clock signal must be present for proper operation of the comb filter and video converter, which I was just explaining. Connect the scope to test point 404 to confirm approximately 700 millivolt peak-to-peak clock signal. So, I already have my probe here. My probe is already connected to a ground point. The ground clip here connected to a ground point. So, test point 404. That's going to be really annoying. Test point 404 is. Oh no, it came across a skip. Without the DAXI, and if you come across a bad skip, it's not going to know what to do because it uses the DAXI for the stylus kick circuit. So test point 404, right there. And we get jack shit. Lovely. So this is what I'm getting. This is the blank screen here on the oscope. We get nada. I'm touching the probe, and I'm on the right channel here, because that's what it looks like when I put my finger on the probe tip. So we're looking at it correctly. We have no signal there. So we are missing the clock after all. So we gotta continue on with this service check here. Find out what's going on. Why is the clock missing? I already know the answer. I'm not going to tell you though. So, no, blah, blah, blah. Clock signal is not present, so this applies to us. You also have this very helpful chart here too, so you can just look at that. But thought I would talk through the actual words written on the page here. Clock signal is not present. Check for signal at test point 408. Okay, I found it. Test point 408. Test point 408. What do we get? Okay, we still don't get a signal at test point 408 here. What gives, man? So on test point 408, this is what it looks like. It looks blank. Okay, so if it were present, it would tell us to suspect a defective transistor 403 or 404, but it's not present, so we don't suspect those. Alright, so next step. If clock signal is not present there, or the frequency is not correct, well, in our case it's not there, confirm the 3.58 megahertz reference oscillator signal at test point 413. So is the signal there? Hey, we got something for once. Yay! So at test point 413, we have a clock signal. And that looks pretty rock solid to me. Let's zoom in on this thing. Oh, you can't see. Bollocks. So it's going to be really hard to make out, but it looks pretty good from where I'm standing. So okay, so it's present. If it weren't present, then we would suspect the main video converter chip, or the main video converter chip, or the one of the crystals there. I believe the crystal, it will have a suspect. Yeah, the crystal 401 is the 3.58. Well, it's more exact, but basically the 3.58 crystal, it would tell us to suspect that. So if the signal is present at test point 413, connect the scope to right to the chip 402, pin 12 to confirm approximately the 600 megavolts. Megavolts? What the hell? 600 millivolt peak to peak. We're not dealing with anything that big. Yeah, let's start over. Connect the scope to chip 402, pin 12, to confirm approximately 600 millivolts peak to peak, 5.11 megahertz, voltage controlled oscillator signal. Oh, voltage controlled crystal oscillator signal. My bad. I'm sorry. If the signal was not present, suspect the chip or oscillator components. So here's the chip here, the video converter chip. Chip 401 is the quad op amp that controls the transducer for the time-based correction. So I don't really know why the main chip of the section is not labeled 401 and why that quad op amp is labeled 401, but whatever. They have their reasons, I guess. So chip here, we have pins 1, and then there's pin 24 there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, it's the one at the end. Put it back to. Okay, so taking it off pause, I'm not getting a signal off pin 12. It's on pin 12 of the of that IC, and we're getting nothing. So what it says now, if it's not present, we can either suspect the chip or the oscillator components. Now, what it means by oscillator components, so here, that's the pin we were looking at, pin 12 there. and there's some oscillator components here that connects it to pin 15 there. So what it's saying is either suspect the chip outright or suspect the oscillator components. So what's on pin 15 of this chip here? Let's see, 13, 14, 15. My, I see a signal on pin 15. Going back to pin 15 here. Look at that big healthy clock signal there. So what gives? How come it's not going to pin 12? Well, at this point, it's helpful to whip out the service manual proper to this thing. I only have the service manual as far as the FG chassis go to the SGT 250. So it shouldn't have that, there really shouldn't be that much of a difference, if any, between the area of the circuit I want to look at. So here is, should I do it horizontal here? So here's the video converter in the flesh and all. Look at that. Isn't that great? That's what it looks like. We saw at pin 15, hold on. Okay, good. We saw at pin 15, here, there's a signal. It goes through some components here, the aforementioned oscillator components, ends up at pin 12. There. So what we would want to check is, since there's a signal here, no signal here, is the signal getting cut off at some point? I mean, that seems to be the case. So it starts out pin 15 here. Let's see, we go through a crystal, some resistors, then we go through some inductors and caps, go through an inductor, then that leads to pin 12. So can we work backwards from pin 12 to pin 15 and see where the signal is cutting out? I'd say it's worth a shot. Okay, so we have pin 12 of the chip. Again, no signal. So that goes through an inductor 404 on one end, when it's on the other end of the inductor. Ooh. Ooh. Let's do that again with the oscilloscope on screen. So, pin 12 of the IC. That goes to inductor 404. The other end of inductor 404. We have a signal there. It's really hard to make out on the oscilloscope here. I'm sorry. Might help if I zoom in too, so that the difference is big. Yeah, there we go. You can really see that now. Just barely though. So, so the inductor is cutting off the signal. That's really interesting. So I want to be able to get that inductor out, test it out of circuit, and see if it tests bad or not. If it doesn't register as an inductor on my transistor tester, then, well, that's going to point to a bad inductor. So get this disc out. And I'll warm up the soldering iron, and we'll be able to rock and roll. So first and foremost, I want to say the player is unplugged. Basic thing with soldering is you do not want to solder with a device that still has power getting to it in one way or another. And I'm going to need, well, quickly, so I can pin the tip. This thing is like 5 years old. Look at all that. The holes I've made with the thing. I might want to invest in a new one sometime soon. So, first reflow the joints there. So I should just be able to pull it out from here. Otherwise, I'm going to have to get some proper desoldering braid. Come on, big boy. I just called another big boy. Don't have me. Hey. Yeah. This is what that inductor looks like. It's a pretty unique specimen. It's supposed to just be a 15 microhenry inductor. I don't know why they went with this one, but I'm sure they had their reasons. So my transistor tester here will be able to detect if this thing is good or not. No unknown or damage. Well, let's retest it again. Just to absolutely make certain. No unknown or damaged. Okay, 3 strikes, you're out. Yeah, I always use different slots each time to make sure it's not just like something going on with that one particular. You see this shit? I don't think an inductor should measure as a 10.5 mega ohm resistor. I think if your inductor is doing that, it's shot. This is exactly the component I thought went bad on this thing. Because it happened on Tony's SGT 250. It happened on another guy's FG player. So I already pulled one from a parts board I have, and can I get this thing tested before it shuts down? I'm going to test this, and you'll see what it should test like. Oh, I feel a bad storm coming. Yeah. That's more along the lines of what it should test like. It measures as an inductor, and it's basically right where you expect it. Exactly should be 15 microhenries, but it's just going to 1 to the millihenries. So that's good. That's good. I can probably get it in this way. Let's see. And hopefully I can do this before the camera battery dies and I got to whip out my replacement. Okay. Oh, I don't need the doors jump scaring me as I try and do this. This is just becoming like a sport here, trying to position this in a good way. I just need to get like one lead in, and then it'll be easier to go from there. Is this gonna work? This method is. Okay. Got one in. Got the other in. Okay, good. Is that the best one again? The leads on this were like really long, so yeah, that might be the best I can do under these circumstances. It's in there now. It's in there now, and I got old grease on my index finger. That's lovely. Kind of fitting, since I'm about to do the Frankenstein, flip the switch here on this. Okay, so connection's good in there. Let me just give it a proper soldering. looks good. That looks good. Well, the question on all our minds, will it work? Dude, I'm really nervous. If this thing doesn't fix it, then, well, then I'm out of ideas. Live, I command thee. I fixed it! Yes! Oh! Oh my goodness, that feels great! Time display. Audio's working correctly now, because it was kind of low before. We did it! So, if you ever come into that problem where... If you ever come across that problem where you have black and white image with ghosting and there might be audio, in this case there was, but in the other cases I've encountered there was no audio, and there's no time display on here. First thing I would do is test this inductor to see if it went open, because in all other instances, this was the one. This was the one that did it, that put this thing on ice. But now, it is working. And I think there was some static there before, but I think that's just because of my connector, because you probably notice that, I think that's a little loud. You probably notice I just have a F to RCA adapter here, and that goes all the way there to my CRT there. That's how I'm doing it. It's more universal that way. So as I was saying, the servo belt I won't make a video of, because there are videos everywhere on doing servo belts. I know I have a spare servo belt somewhere, so I can take care of that today. But I don't think a cleaning is going to help that, because it does seem to be slipping as opposed to actually being dirty. Okay, can I get some lightning for this Frankenstein resurrection here? I guess not. I guess I'm not going to be blessed with that. Oh well. Well, yeah, I cannot tell you. I'm really happy to have this thing working. This player has now, little story time here. I did actually, the owner that I was very friendly with him. I even worked for him for a bit, not in the store, but just helping out with eBay stuff. He's no longer with us. He passed away in 2021. So, yeah, it's very sad. Anyway, back to the story, because he knew I was getting into these, CEDs, and he knew he had this player here, and he was like, "Well, Austin, you're free to just take it home and test it, and if it works, then just pay me, the asking price or whatever." So I do get this thing home. This is again back in where I grew up, and this is when I had the Sony flat screen, the 1080i Sony. That looking back at it now gave me some display issues on like the CED stuff, but neither here nor there. So and I remember hooking this up to my TV, and the same problem as you saw now, where there was no black and white image and no time display. So I go back to him like, sorry, this player didn't work. Sorry. So now it's really nice to have that mystery resolved as to what caused it. And I'm going to write this one for the books. That inductor should keep that inductor in mind when you're looking at these players, because now this is the third time I've seen one go bad. So kind of like with all the demodulator tips, it seems to be one we should put on our radars. It would also be nice to know if just a regular schmegular 15 microhenry inductor would work on this thing. Theoretically, it should, because it's just an inductor, but we would have to actually, do the substitution to actually make sure. I'm really happy to have gotten this working. This player, is not going to be for sale. This thing has too much value to me, emotional-wise, to sell. So I apologize if you're looking for a working player out there. I'm not giving you this thing. I'm not going to give this one up. Sorry. So that's all I have for today. I'm going to take care of the servo belt and hopefully bring this thing to 100% working order. That's all for now. Thank you for watching.